uh, Hello, everybody, and welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy portal. And this is a channel that is all about wine education. So, of course, as you know, we are doing this for the benefit of you to get you through your examinations. This is one of these videos where we are looking at the examination technique for the WSET Diploma in Wines, the beast, as they call it, the D3 section. If you do have a comment or question, please do get in touch. You can do that by emailing info@winewithjimmy.com or by posting your comment or question. So let's rock and roll talking about our question in play today. Before we do, we're going to talk about the kind of key concepts of the examination technique to really sort of drill these home to you. So in this video, you're going to be testing yourself against a model answer from an examiner. So you can, of course, pause this video at any time to answer the question yourself in a certain allotted time. You may wish to actually do this at the beginning of the video when I pose the question. So pause it and write what you can about it in 40 minutes. And then, of course, compare it against what I say. So this is very useful practice. This will also give you quite fundamental timing understanding. So understanding timings is very important about where to allocate your time in writing your answers, because you don't have too much time. Also, quite importantly, understanding the key command verbs which are used in the questions by WSET. Things like how, why, describe, state and explain, compare, contrast, and so on. Also, we'll go through the key points that can be included in your written answer. That's quite nice because, of course, it's kind of summarizing the key things that you'll need to include in your answer, and then also reflecting on your answers using the published notes from examiners from WSET. So drawing upon a resource published by WSET to then, of course, put that into play with your technique. And also then talking about the emphasis on critical thinking. This is something WSET likes when you are bridging key information. So it is thinking really around the topic and bridging key topics throughout the diploma thesis. So it's what we call critical thinking. I'll make reference to this in this video. Just some general notes of interest from the examiners, which are variably posted throughout the years, just around how students are answering and what can be improved upon. So away from the content, forget about that for now. The areas that let candidates down were handwriting. Please do write as legibly as possible. And then also the length of answer. The examiners are clearly aware that under the pressurized examination conditions, the handwriting may be rushed, but it needs to be legible. And then the short answers that are given, often less than 2 sides in length. The theory examination will allow for 40 minutes per question. So they would hope that you would write 40 minutes worth of writing. Of course, you may get some very stiff fingers, but of course, it's only for a couple of hours at a time. So the questions we are looking at here is going to be on South America. This question featured in the WSET examinations in May 2022. The question is such: outline the characteristics of the grape varieties Carmenère and Torrontés and describe the wines they produce. That's 50% of the marking. Then what are the opportunities and challenges for these wines in the marketplace for another 50%? Let's have a look then. We're going to pause it here. Just before you pause yours, just a few things on timings. Remember, there is 80 minutes for paper 2, where you are answering 2 out of 3 questions, and there's 120 minutes for paper 1, where you're answering 3 out of 4 questions. This basically means you are given 40 minutes per question on average. So what I would do is allocate 5 minutes for planning per question and then 35 minutes per the actual content of the answer. So here you've got 50%, split into two 50%. So if you've got 35 minutes, you're looking at 17 to 18 minutes per 50% here. So 17 to 18 minutes for that first part and 17 to 18 minutes for that second part, after, of course, that you are planning. Please pause it now, have a go at answering both of those in 17 or 18 minutes each, and let's see how you do. Well, let's go. Let's have a look at some general notes from the examiners to begin with. Now, overall performance was limited by the two major trends, as the examiners say. Not addressing directly was asked of the question, and then the lack of detailed knowledge of the subject. So let's go into that. One of the most surprising misapprehensions of many candidates was the two grape varieties are only grown in the same country, so roughly an even split between Chile and Argentina. So this was, of course, factually incorrect, but it also made the examination extremely difficult to pass, as it led to incorrect discussions of related factors. So it's important to, of course, get the correct country per grape variety first, but then express where else it may be found. So here are some. Torrontés performing well in Lleida, Carmenère showing high altitude hardiness in Mendoza, for example, were commonplace errors by these students. And that's quite scary that these are commonplace errors. And only discussing one country only meant that candidates were limited when addressing opportunities and challenges, which of course is the second 50%. Varietal association with distinct countries is a key factor in these wines' commercial position. Overall, the high number of scripts which showed confusion between Argentina and Chile suggests that South America is not high on many people's lists of knowledge, which is, of course, a huge shame. So let's go into the command verb that WSET has thrust in front of you. This is outline. So outline is providing a brief summary of key points. So it's sticking to your essentials, don't need to justify or explain. It's outlining the characteristics. But the second part is describing, where you are then going into key detail. So the first bit of this, the characteristics, would be the main features clue. Typically this involves Carmenère is typically like this, Torrontés is typically like that, but describing that comes after is going into detail about how the wine actually will taste once in the bottle and in the glass. So the way that I'll split this down is that this question actually really is split into two, and then into two grape varieties. So there's going to be 4 bits here. So outlining the characteristics of Carmenère and the wine, that's 2 things. Then outlining the characteristics of Torrontés and the wine. So let's first of all look at Carmenère, which is listed first here. So characteristics of Carmenère to begin with. So first of all, this is Chile's signature grape variety, which is very important, but it is grown in Argentina as well. So it's giving the location of this to begin with. You could also mention that, of course, it is a small amount grown in southwest France as well. It is a late ripening grape variety, ripening 2 or 3 weeks later than Merlot, and needs warm but not too hot and sunny sites. And that's because if it's not ripened fully, it can show quite high pyrazine, so the kind of real herbaceous characteristics. If it is ripened to a high degree, then it will actually ripen into high alcohols as a wine style. And there has been quite a lot of work done into clonal selection, site selection and harvesting dates, less extraction and new oak, meaning that Carmenère is certainly evolving in its style. But we're going to get to the style very shortly. The key thing here is that there are various clones now being outlined of Carmenère, which makes an exciting future for this grape variety, as it can be grown in multiple parts of Chile, really expressing maybe like full-bodied and softness or more herbaceous characters, more driven fruit, higher tannins, and so on. The wine styles are what come next. So we know that this grape variety is often found as varietal, but it can also be found in blends. It's increasingly becoming a single varietal, and there are two very good examples that are often very full-bodied with high levels of tannin, medium acidity, with black fruits, herbaceous characters, and spice with oak if it is used. So that's what's listed down here, found as a varietal and in blends. And as a varietal, often full-bodied, tannin, medium acidity, medium to high alcohol, ripe black fruits and herbaceous, and then the spice and oak-based characteristics as well. It is mostly grown in places like Cachapoal, where it's recognized for producing very good full-bodied wines, specifically around Puemo, which is in brackets on your slide. Now, Puemo's location within the winding valley of the Cachapoal River means that it's sheltered from cold weather from the Andes, yet it does experience these winds funneled from the coast, which reduces frost risk and ensures a long, warm growing season for late ripening Carmenère. It also means you get thicker skins with those grapes because they really have to protect themselves against the wind, which leads to bigger structural tannins. The soils of the western Cachapoal area are a bit more fertile and loamy, which they say is very ideal for Carmenère. We also find the grape variety in cold Chagua. Again, the warm, fertile central part of the valley produce inexpensive and full-bodied expressions, but there are cooler and less fertile areas where you get some expression, some concentration and better tannin, certainly around the Apalta area. We also find Carmenère grown in Curicó, Maipo and Morlaix as well. The fresher examples come from the Alto Maipo, for example. It is important to mention the diversity of where this will come from. Some also students produced information about Carmenère grown in Argentina and also elsewhere in the world. Let's talk about Torrontés. So we know there are a variety of styles of Torrontés. We are going to be talking about Torrontés Riojano because there is Torrontés Sanjuanino and Torrontés Mendocino as well. This is a natural cross of a Muscat and then Criolla Chica dating back to the 18th century. Now, the reason why I include this information is that it will help you describe the style later, the Muscat parent giving that, of course, perfumed characteristic. This is a fairly vigorous and high-yielding variety, but it is early ripening, meaning that you can in fact find some over-ripening styles, certainly in lower altitude San Juan and Mendoza. That often leads to a lack of acidity and a bitter finish. There's been investment in improvements in grape growing and winemaking as well, increasing the profile of this style. And through actions of reducing yields, earlier harvesting, and also then winemaking techniques like careful temperature control, we are finding really lovely wines here. But these are the characteristics we're talking about here with Torrontés. The wine styles. So most Torrontés is intended to be drunk fairly young. So that is often in stainless steel. But we will find some being oak for maybe partial barrel ferments or very small percentages. It's usually made in a single varietal, but there's a few blends like with Sauvignon Blanc, but it's more often a varietal. And you can find also some sweet, fragrant late harvest styles. Because of its parentage of Muscat, you'll find things like floral aromatics. They are very much heightened in the high altitude areas in the Salta province. So Cafajate, for example, in that northern area. So you get these wonderful, fresh and very lifted floral compounds. They tend to be much lower from the low altitude Mendoza or San Juan areas. The key places are that we find quite a lot in Mendoza, San Juan, La Rioja, and also Salta, with the Salta province probably producing some of the most famed and high quality expressions that we can find, but also the high altitude parts of Mendoza, for example. So there's a lot of context there. That's taken me sort of 10 minutes to talk about that, which is quite a lot of time, but you'll be writing it out at a slower pace. So let's talk about some notes from the examiners about what I just mentioned. There was a general lack of accuracy shown about the nature and characteristics of these two grape varieties. Most candidates were writing basic tasting notes at this point when talking about the characteristics. This is not what we are looking for. We are looking for actual characteristics of the grapevine themselves. Too many candidates gave overtly broad ranges of the grape's structural components to be convincing, and candidates should describe what is most typical and be specific as possible when going through key areas. And that's important because many candidates failed on the regional stylistic variants, like I mentioned when talking about Torrontés. So Torrontés often lacked such commentary, as you can see here. So remember, high altitude styles being more floral, being higher in acidity, compared with the styles that you find in places like low altitude Mendoza. Okay, so that's our first part done of the question. We're halfway through the question. For access to the remaining video and lots more exclusive video content with hundreds of tutor-led videos, please visit the Wine with Jimmy e-learning platform and sign up today. Cheers!